This is Jill Simonello with Pickup Truck Plus SUV Talk, and today we are in Austin, Texas, driving a brand new compact SUV from Toyota, and that is the Corolla Cross. Now, this vehicle is coming into a very hot segment, but I think as we go through this review, you're going to find out it is going to be really competitive. So what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about what this vehicle is. We're going to talk about the engine. We're going to compare it to the CHR because I know that's a burning question in a lot of people's minds. Is this replacing the CHR? The short answer is no, it is not. So we're going to take a look at that, and then I'm going to tell you what I like and what I don't like about this vehicle. So I want to start a little bit with some pricing information, and that is the base price for this vehicle is going to be $23,400. If you go all in for the XLE trim and you add every option available, you're gonna ring in at just more than $32,000. So now I want to take a closer look at the rest of this vehicle. As we take a closer look at the Corolla Cross, let's start with the engine. So this is going to be a 2.0 liter four-cylinder engine that delivers 169 horsepower and 150 pound-feet of torque. Now, before I talk about how it drives, I'm going to deliver just a little bit of bad news here, and yes, this does have a CVT. I know a lot of people don't like the CVT in any vehicle, but yeah, so this has a CVT. Toyota is calling it a direct shift CVT, however, which means it has a first gear and then everything else is CVT after that. So overall, I think that the CVT and the engine work really well together, and you have a nice amount of power for quick off-the-line starts as well as merges with highway traffic. Now I'm going to tell you, this is not one of those super peppy vehicles, so it's not going to make your heart flip. It's just enough. So it's not exceptional, but it's enough. So overall, I like the powertrain, and I like the fact that this is a light and nimble vehicle. I also really like the fact that you can get all-wheel drive on every trim for just $1,300. While we have this open, because I know the Pickup Truck Plus SUV fans are a little bit of a fan of the dipstick, I'm just going to show you where that is. So you have the dipstick right here. It's really easy to reach, again, because this is a compact SUV. I can pretty much reach everything in here, but the dipstick is here, and you have your washer fluids here and your battery pack right there. So everything in here is compact, just like the SUV. Now that we've had a closer look at the engine, I want to jump right into the things that I like on the Toyota Corolla Cross, and I've already mentioned the all-wheel drive. But I have to restate that because I really love the fact that this has all-wheel drive on every trim. The L, the LE, and the XLE, you can get all-wheel drive. So the other thing that I really like about this vehicle is the fact that there is so much standard stuff. So let's start with the Apple CarPlay. So with a base L trim, all you have to do is plug in your phone and you have standard Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. I think that is a huge win, because that means you don't need navigation ever. You have access to Google Maps, Apple Maps, and Waze just by plugging in your phone in a car that starts at $23,000. So I think that is a huge win, and after all-wheel drive, that is going to be the number 2 thing on my like list. I also really like the fact that there are standard rear air vents. Toyota made a big deal about this, so I feel like that has to be pretty high up on my list, because a lot of vehicles this is going to compete with do not have air vents in the back seat. So this does, and on a day like today where it's like pushing 100 degrees, I'm going to say thank you, Toyota. So that also makes it pretty high on my like list. The other thing that I really like that is also standard is the safety technology. So even on your base L trim, you're going to get the TSS 2.0 or the Toyota Safety System 2.0. And you're going to have standard features like automatic high beams, lane keep assist, lane trace assist, and adaptive cruise control that will take you all the way down to a stop. Now, I've driven vehicles recently where you have adaptive cruise control, but as soon as it goes below 30 miles per hour, the system shuts off. Nope, this will stay on all the way to a stop, and then to restart it, if you're in stop and go traffic, you just push your foot on the gas and whoop, it pops right into your adaptive cruise control back to the same speed that you were going with the flow of traffic. So Also, another huge win on a vehicle, again, that I'm going to tell you starts at just more than $23,000. So lots of standard safety technology, and the standard technology in terms of Apple Carplay, the standard air vents, all of those things are a huge win and on the top of my list. Now we're going to climb inside the vehicle because I have two more things that I want to tell you about that I really like on the Toyota Corolla Cross. Now, another thing that I really like about the Corolla Cross is going to be the driving position. Now, this is an LE trim, so like the base L trim, you've got manual adjustments here, but I'm going to show you that this is highly adjustable. Now, because I'm 5 feet tall, I really like to be in a far up position, and this right here allows you to pump it up pretty high. I mean, come on, I'm still going and going and going and going. Okay, so now I'm all the way up, and I'm going to adjust my distance here. And really, I just want to go forward just a little bit more to be able to reach the pedals. Now, here is another brilliant thing about this vehicle. You have a tilt and telescoping steering wheel, so I can move it up and away from me, and then I get a really good driving position with my arm straight and my wrist just cresting the wheel. So this is really, really helpful for somebody who's petite, but it's also going to be really good for somebody who is on the taller side of the spectrum. Now, once I'm in this position and I've got everything adjusted for my driving situation, I would also like to point out that these A-pillars right here are not really big, so you're not going to have a lot of blind spots, and you've got excellent visibility out of the front window and the side windows. One more thing that I want to point to about the driving position that a lot of automakers forget on a more entry-level vehicle, and that is going to be this right here. So when you pull your seatbelt out, there's an adjustment right here that goes up or down depending on your height. Well, I'm short, and if this is too high, the seatbelt ends up cutting into my neck, and let me tell you, that is not comfortable, especially when it leaves a red line on my neck. So the fact that this can go down or up is also another huge win for a vehicle that is more on the entry-level side of the spectrum. So overall, I've got a really good driving position, the seatbelt works, the steering wheel tilts and telescoping, and even though you've got manual adjustments on 2 of the trims, you can adjust it really well. Now, when you upgrade into the XLE trim, you do get 10-way power adjustable seats, including lumbar support. And I have to tell you, that is even better than this, and this is really good. Now, the last thing on my like list is going to be this area back here. This cargo space is really good for a compact SUV. So you're going to have different sizes depending on whether you have all-wheel drive or front-wheel drive, but so you're going to go from 24.3 cubic feet of cargo volume to 25.5 cubic feet of cargo volume, the less being with the all-wheel drive version. But you can fit a couple of rollerboards back here, you can fit a small adult back here, you can fit backpacks, you can fit flowers if you go to Home Depot, you can fit some supplies. You've got a 60-40 split with the seats, so you can lay some things flat if you need to, but I think this is a really good cargo area, and the fact that this isn't super slanted means you can put things in a more upright position if you have to. So really good space back here. And the other thing that I'm going to point to is starting at the LE trim, you have a tonneau cover, and that will be in the LE and the XLE, so it's not on the base. But at the XLE trim, you're going to also have a power liftgate option. So it's not on the LE, and it's an option on the XLE, but I really like that a power liftgate is available. Now it is time to launch into my do not like list, and I'll be honest with you, you're going to have to take it with a grain of salt, and the first 3 items on my list are very trim specific. So let's start with the base trim. I love everything that is standard on the base trim, but there are 2 things that I think could have been done a little bit better, and the first is the wheels on the base trim. Now this is an LE trim, so you've got some nice wheels going on here, but if you look at the wheels on the base trim, they look pretty cheap. And they could have done maybe just a little bit better with that. The other thing is, if you get the base L trim, you're going to have an actual key. And while that may bother nobody except for me, to me, I've now gotten used to the fact that most vehicles come with push button start and passive entry. But yeah, if you opt for the base L trim, you're going to have to deal with an actual key. So that was the first 2 things trim specific to the base L. Now the last thing that is trim specific that I don't like is going to be that you can only get automatic reverse braking on the top tier XLE trim. I think this is a great feature. I think it's a feature all vehicles should have. And if you look at something like the Nissan Kicks, which is also a small SUV, rear automatic reverse braking is standard. So I think that's a miss on Toyota's part. I think it should have been standard, starting at the base L trim. And for the last thing on my do not like list, we're gonna climb inside the vehicle, and this is not trim specific. It is going to be on every single vehicle. Now here we are for the last thing on my do not like list, and it's gonna be this. I'm 5 feet tall, and while I have a couple of inches between my knee and the back of the seat, anybody who's taller than me is gonna have a little bit more of a difficult situation back here. And granted, this is in a further back position, so maybe you have to negotiate with the front seat passenger to make them move forward a little bit. But this is gonna just be a little bit awkward for somebody who's more on the average side of the height spectrum. We did point out there are standard rear air vents, but I don't know that anybody's gonna wanna spend a lot of time back here because, yeah, this is just not gonna be super comfortable. Now, as I've been driving the Corolla Cross, I've actually been posting pictures on Instagram, and a lot of people have been asking me if this is gonna replace the CHR. And the answer to that is no, it is not. So how does this fit into the Toyota SUV lineup? Well, it's between the CHR and the RAV4. So if you want to talk specifics in terms of sizing, this vehicle right here is going to be about 3 inches longer, 3 inches taller, and about 1 inch wider than the CHR. Even though both of the vehicles have a similar wheelbase and they're built on the same platform. But the CHR is not going away. This is just a new addition, and frankly, I think this looks a little bit better than the CHR because it's a little bit more mainstream. If you'll remember, the CHR originally was in the Scion lineup, so it has a little bit of a quirky, funky look to it, whereas this right here looks like a baby RAV4. So, not replacing the CHR isn't going anywhere that we know of, but this is just gonna slot in as a little bit more expensive and a little bit bigger than the CHR. All right, so that is about all I have for this week, but I do want to leave you with a final thought. And even though I know the LE is going to be the volume seller for the Corolla Cross, for my money, I would opt for the XLE. And that's primarily because of the automatic reverse braking. I think that is a must-have feature. And I'm going to tell you, the heated seats that come on that vehicle are also one of my personal must-haves. So I'd opt for the XLE. I'd probably not go for really any of the options, and I'd keep it under $29,000. But overall, I think this is a great vehicle with some excellent driving dynamics, and I think this is going to be a huge win for the Toyota lineup. So, thanks for watching. Don't forget to visit us on pickuptrucktalk.com, and I'll see you down the road.